All right, thank you for staying with the Monday Report. We're starting the discussion now. We're focusing on the sustainability of the tree growing, not just the planting, because the target for the government was about 100 million trees in the short rain seasons. It was launched today by the president, but the bigger target is 15 billion trees by 2032. And I have with me in guests in studio, George Tarus, Acting Conservation Secretary, State Department for Forestry. Thank you so much for making time. Elizabeth Wadhuti is here, founder Green Generation Initiative. Thank you very much for making time. And Dr. Isaac Kalua Green, founder Green Africa Group. Thank you very much for making time. And Dr. Tarus, I'll start with you on this. How many trees have been planted so far? The target was 100 million when you started.
No, thank you very much, Trevor, for the opportunity to be with you this evening. I must first of all appreciate the many Kenyans and corporates who turn out in large numbers to be able to support us in the 15 billion journey. From the reports we are getting from our teams, the turnout was good and the trees planted is also overwhelming. We are still working through Jazamiti to be able to have an accurate number, but our estimation is that we must have even surpassed the number.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's good. Dr. Kalua, I read one of your articles on the 4 lessons that we must learn if we're going to ensure this is sustainable. One of the things you talked about was local community involvement. In fact, I quote one of the lines from your article saying, unfortunately, afforestation is always led by a select few. Have we learned any lessons based on what you think we needed to learn? Or is this still being led by a select few?
Thank you for having me, Trevor, and thank you for reading my articles. I believe it encourages me to write the next one. And therefore, 4 lessons that I put in yesterday's message are based on very practical grassroots findings. And I highlighted 2 issues. The place where the president planted the last year's trees, where he planted trees equivalent to his age in a place called Konabaridi. Number 1, I met a lady called Naisenya, a 31-year-old with 3 children. And they say, 1, there is no engagement for the community because we are only given a job only when they have to replant the trees. This is the actual situation on the ground. And therefore, the local community is very hopeful for the trees to die so that they can get a new job. That is the reality on the ground. 2, they are saying these people are fighting with moles, which we know how to deal with. You can fence off that. We can't fence off the moles unless you involve us. They are saying that there is a big houses that have been built there and we are suffering. There is a lot of infrastructure. There is a big gate without a fence. And therefore, they are saying that if we were involved, then we would do something. When you look at also the funding in projects of government, and I say this with a lot of humility and believing that the government, and I'm very happy that George is here, because I'm saying it with kindness that we learn from this. It's positive critique. The community is saying, okay, you have had a lot of funding previously. There is one, we have been hearing about the Queen's Canopy. Where is that money? You ask any officer today, they don't know. Yet, either pledged or actually given, they don't know. Talk about Miti Mingi project, which has been funded to the tune of 2 billion shillings previously. And it is not about where the money is. No. It is just the communication. Let the people know, let the people get involved. They have an idea of how the ministry and how the government can be able to succeed. That is the community engagement. I have, as I finish to answer your question, I've been in places in Narok where people, when they are called to plant trees, they carry a pack of salt in their pockets and they put the salt the same day, the moment that they are planting trees, so that those trees don't grow because they need the space that those trees are being planted for a different reason. I have been, and it is all documented in the task force report. I have been in Mount Kenya, where Kenyans are going to plant trees, and after the trees grow, after about 6 months, 8 months, they have a program they call Shtua program. They come to unplug the tree and pin it back. So you just actually see the plant or something in the hole that you planted, but it's not growing. And therefore, it means that there is need for involvement.
Okay.
The place where the president planted, very good trees, the ones that were planted by the president are growing very well. Others that were planted and were small and tiny, they have since been replaced 4 times. This is the reason why we have a failure and 90% death rate of the trees, because they are not properly done. And these are lessons that we just need to learn.
Elizabeth, how can we have a more sustainable way of growing trees, not just planting them? And I know you've been involved in this for quite some time now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Trevor, for having us today. It would be interesting for you to also tell us how many trees you've planted today.
Good one.
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things for us to understand is the planting is just the beginning of the exercise.
Yeah.
And once you've planted, there's a whole journey that that tree has to take for it to be able to grow and go up to maturity. And I think it would be interesting to also see people having more and more awareness about tree growing, and that's why it's tree growing, because planting is one thing, and it's one thing to plant a tree, but for us to say that we're making an impact, it has to be about the maturity and survival rate of every tree that we've planted. And earlier today, when I was preparing to go for the tree planting, I personally participated in the tree planting at Wetland in Makindu, and I remember I put out a post and I mentioned to people, like, let that tree that you plant today be part of your story. Let it be something that you can be able to connect with. The same way you connect when a child is born and you see that child grow, you nurture that child to be a good child. I think it's the same care and level of support we need to give to environment. And I think the clear demonstration that we saw today during this National Tree Planting Day is just a message for everybody to understand that the environment is everybody's responsibility. Yes, we have environmental organizations. Yes, we have environmental leaders. But at the end of the day, it has to be everybody's collective responsibility. If I look around all of the people that did the tree planting today, I know we have a target of about, everybody's supposed to plant about 30 every year. And I've just run a quick poll and people have even planted more than 1 tree today. So it means that it's actually possible for us when we collectively and, you know, within our hearts understand that we can be able to make this environment safe and better for everybody. But the planting is just one thing. We have to sustain that. And one of the beautiful ways that I see that sustenance is also about how do we also make sure that we have these adopting trees within our ecosystems, adopting trees within our homes, within our institutions, in a way that we can be able to account for every tree that grows. I like the adoption of the Jazamiti app. Personally, and even through my organization, we fill that app every time we plant trees. And we have to take pictures of where we planted those trees, which means that when we go back to that place, we can be able to check the photos we took, the coordinates we took, and then we can be able to understand if these trees are surviving. And if they are not surviving, then we are doing something that is not correct. So I think at the end of the day, it's understanding that planting, what we've done today, it's just the beginning of us being able to make an impact to an environment. All of us now have to carry on with that exercise. Every time, every month, when we're celebrating anything, let it be a culture that we instill in ourselves, because at the end of the day, it's about beautifying our environment, making sure that we can sustain ourselves, because these trees is what will help us, you know, get the rains, get food, make, you know, our ecosystems healthy. It's everything that we literally have right now as humans. So we can be able to, we need to continue to sustain that with that kind of understanding.
Tarus, what is the sustainability plan?
Of course, thank you very much, Trevor. I also wanted to put a little bit of the context into the discussion. And I want to pick from where my senior left. Basically, the whole idea about the 15 billion is not focused on public forests. The 15 billion is to be delivered across our entire landscape that Kenya has been endowed with. And this was based on an assessment we did in the year 2016, where we realized 38.8 million hectares of Kenyan's land was degraded. And these lands are distributed across various land uses. We have degraded agricultural lands, we have degraded wetlands, we have degraded forest, we have degraded grasslands. And out of that, we are now deploying an 11th intervention proposal across all those landscapes, so that we have agricultural lands that are able to support food production, while again accommodating a tree component in it. And from Actually, where we were, it's a wetland. And wetland, the way we know it, has huge potential in terms of enabling communities access clean water. And I looked at the numbers, for instance, that were shared, that Makindu or Kiu wetland where we were supports over 400,000 residents of Makindu town and its environment. So the intervention, specifically speaking to wetlands, is one that we would want to encourage all of us. So coming to your question, basically the sustainability part of the bigger strategy is creating opportunities for everyone to plug in. And that's why we are adopting this campaign, whole society, all government approach, where the small, the large, the marginalized, and every other person has to come to be part and parcel of this story. And that's why we came out today to provide an opportunity for every Kenyan to plant 1, 2, 3, 4 in the lands, be they in the estates, be they in a public forest, be they in an infrastructure, be they in a wetland. All those are counting to the bigger, of course, strategy of doing 15 billion. But more importantly, in terms of sustainability, we are looking at an opportunity of developing value chains around them. Because truth be told, trees have a huge economic opportunities that may not have been fully unbundled. And a case in example, and I was sharing this with my senior here, that we know a tree of almost 5 years, if you were to sell off at the market price, it could fetch you 5,000. And if you were to put 15 billion trees into the landscape, and you probably sell off without even adding any value at 5,000, you are way above 10 trillion shillings directly. Now minus the many other benefits that comes with enhanced landscape in terms of agriculture, in terms of managing our climate scenario, in terms of biodiversity and all that. So we are looking at trying to build industry, and that's why of the many trees that you want to put into the landscape, for instance, 30% of them have to be fruit trees. And out of that, we expect now to have value chains around agro-processing to feed, to tap into the already supplied fruit trees, for instance, and many others. Okay. Yeah, so all right. Thank you.
Dr. Kalua, simplify tree growing efforts. It's one of the lessons you said we have to learn. Is this simple enough now? Or is it still a bit more complex?
Before I talk about that, it is very important that we appreciate that the government and the Ministry of Forestry and Environment is doing a good job. And this is what I keep encouraging them to do. There are many good things that they are doing that they are not going out to the public to talk about. When you hear about Kenya Forest Service and removal of some officers, including top officers, it's very important to be put in perspective. Kenyans were crying on social media. Officers in the Kenya Forest Service were going out and saying, how can we be protecting the environment when actually one of our top board officers is a person who is dealing with sawmilling and yet is inside there? It's like granting the feast to the wrong party. And it was going so deep, even spoiling the name of the president. And the officers have already been changed. This is good. We have a national day. The problems that we have in this space is not a President Ruto problem. It's a deep problem that started many years back, Trevor. And even if any other president came today, he would maybe have triple problems than what Ruto is trying to deal with here. Because you cannot do this as a quick fix. Trees, and that I am answering your question, trees have 3 lessons that they teach us about purpose, because a tree will grow for the purpose that it was planted. Oxygen, water, everything that the president, every one of us talks about. The second thing is the story that is very important of perseverance. And the third story of a tree is the patience, which you must be able to wait, and it grows long, it takes long to be able to deal with this. Now, how do you communicate? And I like our dressing tonight. We are in green. Look at what my brother George is wearing, 15 billion. And I have here, plant your age. That is where we want to go. This is the how. When Wangari Maathai passed on, I called upon Kenyans to plant 71 trees in her commemoration. In fact, the first Wangari Maathai Green Corner was planted by President Ruto. He was not in power at that time. Together with Duale, Honorable Duale, we planted in a place, Kabete, Nairobi University, together with the current VC. Within 1 year, less than a year, we already had planted 15.7 billion trees. 15.7 million trees. And it's a coincidence that when I see these numbers. And Kenyans said, I've planted for Wangari Maathai Corner. What next? Together with Rotary clubs and all that, we said, hey, why don't we make it plant your age? And it became plant your age. And therefore, the ownership, my trees, my age. Kenyans need a very simplified thing. When you complicate it with very big figures, their minds shut. So we keep it very simple. And I've demonstrated in one of my previous articles, if all Kenyans in our numbers, our average age is 19.6. If we all planted trees equivalent to 19.6, if every Kenyan did in 7 years, we will have 1.8 billion trees. If Safaricom, which has got 46 million customers, if using their corporate social investment, just half of them were incentivized, not even giving them money, credit hapa, internet pale, nini hapa, they would plant trees equivalent to 8 billion. And I demonstrated that way, going to KCB, going to Vivo, just about 5 companies. And we already were getting, within 7 years, we would get to 18.8 billion trees. When you hear the figure 15.7, it's easy. It's very achievable. In fact, much higher. The Plant Your Age campaign, which was started by President Kibaki and launched in Kitui on 30th of April 2012, is something that if we own it, and no wonder the president planted 56 trees to commemorate his birthday. That is the story that we need to take home. Simplify the story, show people how to make money. I have demonstrated that I bought a Mercedes-Benz out of growing trees, seedlings. Whenever I have a project that I feel that is very heavy and I need to get on out of my normal way of doing things, then you can be able to do something that will take you there. This is adaptable. Every Kenyan can be able to be guided to do something that will put money in their pockets. So if we can do that, I believe that we'll be getting somewhere. Simplifying the story, making it so natural, showing people where the money is, and they will be able to go in that manner. Tell an African man to conserve environment, a person, you'll be left alone. Show them how to make money, and they will all go in that direction. Why not use it as a bait?
So it's the money aspect.
We are talking about hardship. We are talking of economic troubles. This is one of the solutions that we can be able to use.
Liz, how do you involve the young people like yourself into this entire ecosystem of planting trees? And are they involved enough right now?
I think first to reference the late Professor Wangari Maathai, now that Daktari has referenced her. And there's one quote we always talk about, and which is now really applying to what we are doing today. And she always said that until you dig a hole, you plant a tree, water it and nurture it. You're not doing a thing, you are just talking. And I think one of the clear demonstrations has been in terms of how we can be able to take action within our own spaces, asking ourselves, what is my little thing as a young person? What is my little thing as from wherever part I am in this country? What is my little thing that I am doing to contribute towards making this planet better for everyone and for generations to come? Because honestly, even the trees that have been planted today, for sure, it is going to be the children and the young people that will be able to benefit from these trees, for instance, because of course they will take some time to grow. But it's also for us to understand that we are not only doing this for ourselves, but we're doing it also for generations to come. We are planting trees not just for us to have shade, but also for our children to be able to have shade and shelter under those trees, and also for our children to be able to get fruits from the fruit trees that we are planting around. And I think one of the ways in which young people have been involved, of course, there's been a lot of events even basing from today, that have been organized by young people from across different counties. And the reason this has been, and of course it's been an ongoing exercise, there's been a lot of young people engaging in the space and doing their little thing to make sure that they are conserving the environment. And I think one of the ways has been just demonstrating that, that urgency and the fact that they can be able to go out there and begin to educate their communities and begin to demonstrate that they can be a part of the solution, which I think is one of the most important things that roles that young people have been playing. And I think the other thing that we really need to go big on, even in terms of also involving the young people, is also the issue of incentives, because a lot of these young people as well, you realize that have, or, they already, for example, have tree nurseries that they've established in their homes. I have so many young people that were reaching out to me when this whole exercise started, and they're like, do you know anywhere where we can be able to, for example, get trees? And others were like, we already have these seedlings. If you hear anybody that wants seedlings, we have them in surplus, which is a really good example to show that they're stepping up and they're demonstrating action. So if we can be able to go a lot more big on the incentives to make sure that we can be able to upscale even these initiatives within our communities, within the grassroots level, so that a lot more people can be able to continue participating. And I think it's also going to respond to the issue of sustainability, and which I think it's going to be really important that if people can be able to produce their own seedlings and they can be able to have an income generating activity out of it, because for me that would be a good incentive. Yeah. It would be a good unlocking as well of the green jobs, and it's a huge opportunity that we have right now as we look to hit the 30% target for our country in terms of the tree cover. And I think we definitely do have a lot of value that the young people are bringing to the table, and also making sure that we continue to support them in all ways possible, and especially in unlocking some of these opportunities. And I think it would be great to first also acknowledge the political goodwill that we see right now within the space. The fact that today, a National Tree Planting Day made a public holiday for people to go out there and plant trees is an opportunity that shows that a lot of the things, we've been talking about, a lot of the things we've been calling for now, there's a lot of this, political goodwill to make sure that everybody is a part of the solution. And of course, the great work that the Ministry of Environment is doing as well in, supporting young people and making sure that they can also be a part and parcel of the solution, I think is something commendable that we also need to acknowledge.
Okay. Darus, what is the plan for incentives? Because it has been spoken about by both the panelists here.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's the incentive part is going to come through putting in the right policies to support business cases. And I think I mentioned, and I want to really support Liz on that, that basically from where we sit as government, we are looking at an opportunity for businesses to thrive out of this intervention that would enable everybody within the value chain to tap into the benefits, the immense benefits actually to be accrued by putting the 15 billion trees into the landscape. Secondly, also is that there is discussions as to whether we would be able to have even an award scheme that highlights and be able to project basically the good work every Kenyan or every partner who works with us in this journey in putting trees into the landscape would ideally be able to be recognized through a process. Thank you.
I have a question here from Steve Ogutu. He says, I have a question to your guest from the government side, that is Darus.
Okay.
Which types of trees are being planted? The government has to invest in educating the public on which trees should be planted in which areas. We know that a mature eucalyptus consumes thousands of liters of water and therefore might not be suitable for water catchment areas.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steve, for that question. Basically, we are doing what we call species site matching, so that the trees that we are growing within our landscape are the right ones for that specific landscape. So part of what we are currently providing under the JASA MITI application is the site species matching tool, so that if you are able to identify where you are in this country, you would have a list of all the preferable species that should be planted within that particular area. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Kalua, you had mentioned one other thing. I'm looking at the issues that you brought up. Fencing the entire length and breadth of all forest. Honorable Soipan Tuya was here with us yesterday, I believe, with Jeff and Vicky. And he spoke about 2 million hectares. Is it practical to fence that out? And also Tarusi is saying that this is not just about the specified forest areas, it's also about people's own land areas. What was the plan, what was the thinking behind fencing?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I watched that interview. It was such a great interview by our CS for Environment. She's doing a good job. She's only incapacitated in terms of finances and support. You can imagine a ministry that we are expecting to work with communities and add value only has a budget of 10 billion Kenya shillings. There invites an issue of funding. KFS only has a budget of about 4 billion. The KEFRI, which has got all those innovations that you saw today, they only have a budget of about 1-point-something billion, less than 2 billion. Kenya Water Towers, which is part of that, has got much less budget, which is mostly for recurrent purposes. It is a recommendation. I have made that recommendation. We have made it with the Kenya Water Towers Agency. It has been done by UNDP. It has, you know, that the solution. The president has talked about fencing all the forests so that there is no interference, and that can be done with the community. There are many institutions that have shown that that is possible. And even when you fence off a place, you don't even have to plant some of the trees. Trees just grow up. So the fact that the ministry does not have sufficient funding, and it is out of valuation. You know, how much is the forestry ministry contributing in terms of energy with all those sources of green energy, and how much is being plowed back to the ministry? And there are so many, but the ministry is left crying without money. Yet their money is in Ministry of Health, Ministry of Energy, Ministry of what? Because they should be getting that back so that they can conserve the environment and lead Mwananchi to understand all this. Because those who are living uphill, they need to feel the money in their pocket compared to those who are downhill and planting maize. That cycle needs to be very clear, and we need to support the ministry in the best way possible. Yeah. We need to also bring in the community to be part of the fence, because fence must not be physical in some of the forests. Because we have a big trouble. When we went back in Kenya Water Towers, we at one time with the minister then gazetted about 118 water towers, from 5 to 18 to 100 and something. But that's just paper. There is the valuation, and not only valuation, but the fencing, the survey works that needs to be done. Some of the boundaries are unknown, and they are deliberately so by the community, because the community wants to still get access to that place. Yet if we engage the community in a good way, where you are allowed to access the forest, collect seed in the so-called crown picking, pack working together with KEFRI, sell a kilo for 2,000 to 5,000, that community appreciates that this forest must stand. The grass you see being sold in the marketplace, the carpet grass, has been removed from the forest. This is access. With the moment you remove that grass and get it to the market, soil is eroded. How many people know this, and how can we involve them? We need to get a continuous engagement. We need to also get the process. There is a lot of money, by the way, Trevor, that can be able to fence this off. If there was incentive to the private sector, and they are asked to adopt a 1 kilometer fence, you'll be surprised what result will be there. Because fencing starts from the mind. If you just police people that this is the fence and get the chiefs, they will be overwhelmed. People will always get a way of running away from this. So incentivizing also the private sector will add value to this process. Funding the Kenya Forest Service and the entire ministry in the best way. This ministry should be one of the best funded ministries, because they are actually producing, and it's only that we are not getting the right valuation for these processes. So yes, it can be fenced. It is a recommendation. It is something that has been seen and known and heard, because it is the same way in our homesteads. And by the way, all the forest land that we have in this country is only 10%. And I like the way George has said that we are now targeting outside. So outside is a story of selling the product in a way that it can be bought. Plant fruit trees, you will earn money. Do these medicinal trees, you will make money. Do these specific trees, you will be able to make timber and firewood, and you can be able to do that. That is a story that needs to be to sell, and it can't sell without fulus.
Okay. All right, I have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're running out of time. I'll see a bit of your feedback, and then I'll take closing remarks from my guests here. And I see there's a question here also from Fred Obachi Machoka. Says, where does government have affordable tree nurseries at county level? You'll answer that when we come back from the break, and then I'll give you a chance for closing remarks each. All right, thank you so much for staying with Citizen TV. We're back in just a moment.